It's Wednesday, December 6th. In the headlines, highlights from a town hall meeting about the roles and conduct of parliamentarians. And Minister Pernell Charles Jr. speaks on Jamaica's work to increase accessibility for the disabled. In business news, we track the uptick of Jamaican motor vehicle registration. Regionally, Barbados continues to push for adaptation financing. And in sports, news on Trinidad and Tobago's Premier Football League. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. We begin with some updates on decisions coming out of the government's weekly cabinet meeting. On Tuesday, members of the public were able to join a discussion with members of the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, now reviewing the draft job descriptions and code of conduct for Jamaican parliamentarians. The hybrid town hall meeting began with a response to the question of how the committee intends to do its job. Danita Rodney was online and she filed this report.
In answering the public's question on how the committee intends to do its job, Speaker of the House, Juliet Holness, said deliberations are ongoing and the committee has sought inputs from civil servants.
So the Joint Select Committee would have commenced deliberations in their previous meetings and would have, as indicated prior, sought the input of persons within civil society, individuals privately to make their submissions, members from various constituencies to make their contributions.
Mrs. Holness also says that the committee will be taking into consideration all the public's view on the role of the parliamentarians.
The committee will be taking a look at all the submissions and will continue with a subsequent deliberation, having collated a matrix of the submissions that have come in for the committee.
She says that members of the public can still make their input before a final document be produced.
We do have some submissions so far, not in my estimation sufficient, and time is still there for individuals who desire to make an input to do so, after which the next meeting of the committee will be to consider all the material that is available to it, after which a final document will be produced that incorporates as best as possible where we think the direction is from the people of Jamaica, from parliamentarians themselves, in terms of the way forward.
Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I'm Danita Rodney.
The National Housing Trust, NHT, is on target to meet its housing delivery target of 43,000 housing solutions, despite a few setbacks. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the entity is working to deliver 1,386 housing solutions in Kingston and St. Andrew alone over the next 2 years.
We have the Foreshore Estates, and that will be 230 units. Martin, has that started already? I believe the Foreshore Estate is under construction and will be completed next year. We have the Maxfield Park scheme under the Community Renewal Project, this project, 210 units, and that should be completed in 2025. I believe, Martin, this is under construction. We have White Wing, the Community Renewal Program, once again, 131 units. That should be completed in 2025.
He listed several housing schemes and apartments already under construction, such as Howard Apartments, with 248 units scheduled to be completed in 2025. St. Paul's Lane's Community Renewal Project, with 24 units. Surbiton Apartments with 70 units, and Ruthven Towers Phase 2 set to be completed in 2026. The Bay Farm Road Community Renewal Project is set for 2026 and Vineyard Town scheme with 14 units to be completed in 2025. The Prime Minister notes that the NHT has completed 10,000 housing solutions since its inception, and with these planned developments underway, the entity will outdo its past.
So if we can do 2,000 houses per year in the next 40 years, right? We would more than quadruple the number of houses that we have built in the last 40 years. That is what we want to do, because the demand for housing is great.
The Prime Minister was speaking at the recent groundbreaking ceremony for the Royal Estate development. It will see 144 housing units to be constructed in Tivoli Gardens, West Kingston, as part of the National Housing Trust's Community Renewal Program. This week is being observed as Disabilities Awareness Week. Labour and Social Security Minister Pernell Charles Jr. says Jamaica has made strides in advancing the rights of persons living with disabilities. Speaking in Parliament on Tuesday, he pointed to the accessibility checklist. The checklist highlights architectural and communication barriers which prevent those with physical challenges full access to buildings. We have more in this report.
It further provides, Madam Speaker, instructions on the implementation of additional elements that will facilitate the inclusion and functioning of our persons with disabilities in spaces and areas where they have previously been challenged. This is, in our history, the first time that we have such a comprehensive toolkit developed to guide both the private and public sectors on how we can build a stronger, more inclusive Jamaica.
Minister Charles Jr. also pointed to the Early Simulation Program. The program provides early intervention services to some 3,124 children with developmental disabilities between birth to 6 years of age.
We provide our children in the Early Simulation Program, Madam Speaker, with speech therapy, physiotherapy, advanced developmental screening and evaluation, counseling, community and centered-based intervention and behavior therapy. And this is all free at no cost to them.
He adds that some 165 interventions were conducted via mobile units in rural Jamaica.
Persons with disabilities are often defined by their physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment. Nevertheless, many have risen above expectations to excellence, and it is our duty to facilitate their growth and inclusion in all areas of our society and to provide them with opportunities to overcome challenges.
The minister says Disabilities Awareness Week is an opportunity to put the spotlight on education and support the community of persons with disabilities, their caregivers, family and friends, and the wider Jamaican society. Minister of Education and Youth Favour Williams has commended the University of Technology Jamaica and E-Learning Jamaica Company Limited for partnering to facilitate data protection within the education sector. More in this report from Danita Rodney.
Addressing last week's Training in Data Protection for Educators Awards ceremony at the University of Technology Jamaica's main campus in Kingston, Minister of Education and Youth Favour Williams commended UTech and E-Learning Jamaica for their collaboration. Minister Williams said data protection in the sector is critical as the education system is one of the largest collectors of personal information.
The education system is probably the largest in terms of the data that it collects. Think about your schools. You collect information on all the children that are there, their name, their address, their parents' name, their age, their immunization record, their grades, all kinds of personal data, right? And it's just stored in a paper file and anybody can access it and so on.
Minister Williams, in her thanks, says the collaboration between E-Learning Jamaica and UTech ensures that the education sector is ahead of everyone else.
I want to thank e-learning. I want to thank UTech for this collaboration, for ensuring that the education sector is out ahead of everybody else, probably, in terms, yes. In terms of ensuring that we'll be ready when the Act comes into being.
Over a 3-week period, more than 100 data protection officers were trained under the National Data Protection Training Program for schools. The design and implementation of the curriculum was undertaken by UTech's Faculty of Engineering and Computing in partnership with the Education Ministry and facilitated by eLearning Jamaica. Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I'm Danita Rodney.
Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Hello and a warm welcome to the Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, your companion in navigating the intricate landscape of business and finance. Today, we embark on a journey through the latest developments that shape economies and influence financial decisions. Let's plunge into the heart of today's key stories. Starting with auto news. The Jamaican vehicle registration landscape is set for a dynamic shift. By 2026, projections indicate a growth of 8,190 units, marking a 2% annual increase from the current count of 7,150 in 2021. This trend follows a decade of consistent growth, averaging 7% each year, as unveiled by the insights from research firm ReportLinker.com. Now, let's navigate the intricate waters of the foreign exchange market. On December 5th, 2023, the Bank of Jamaica reported a bustling day, witnessing over 22 million US in transactions. Traders engaged in a delicate dance with the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, also known as the loonie, and the British pound. Buying directly from the Bank of Jamaica, foreign currency traders sold the US dollars for $156.27 and bought the US dollar for $153.96. The difference between the buy and sell rate was a profit for the traders of $2.31. Note that the bankers offer a different buy and sell rate to the public in commercial banks and cambios, with a potentially higher profit for those traders. The Bank of Jamaica also orchestrated transactions with the Canadian dollar, yielding a profit of $5. The Canadian dollar was sold at 116.86 Jamaican and bought for 111.51, culminating in a $5 profit spread. Similarly, traders focusing on the British pound pocketed a profit of $10.29, selling it for $217 and buying it for $89.88. Moving to the main stock market, in which the companies who are worth more than $500 million in assets are traded, investors who traded made the most money on Kingston Properties, Mayberry Investments, and First Rock Real Estate in trading on the Jamaica Stock Exchange on December 5th. The stock price of Kingston Properties, which owns real estate in Jamaica, the United States, and the Cayman Islands, jumped by 9%. The stock price of Mayberry Investments jumped by 7%. And to round out the winners in the stock market trading, the price of First Rock Real Estate Investments Limited went up by 6%. Traders did experience losses on the stock market as well. Epley Caribbean Property Fund, owners of commercial real estate in Kingston and the wider Caribbean, was the day's biggest losers, with 10% wiped off of its share price in trading action. Pan Jamaica Group Limited, which recently merged with Jamaica Producers, also saw 10% wiped off of its share price in the day's trading. And rounding out the losers was investment house Sterling Investments Limited, which experienced a 6% loss in value during trading. Now, Jamaica has a junior market for companies whose assets are valued at $50 million or more. In the junior market, Caribbean Cream Limited stole the spotlight, boasting a remarkable 23% increase in share price. Conversely, microfinance company ISP Finance Services Limited weathered a challenging day, experiencing a 23% loss. Now turning to real estate as another investment option. According to research website Statistia.com, the value of real estate in Jamaica is projected to reach US $91.25 billion in 2023. Jamaican residential real estate compared to Jamaican commercial real estate dominates the market with a projected value of US $74.52 billion in 2023. The value of local real estate is expected to show an annual growth rate of 3.7%, resulting in market volume of in excess of US $109 billion by 2028. Now, before we wrap up, here is a nugget for your financial arsenal in today's credit report tip of the day. Set up automatic payments to avoid late fees and boost your credit score. Automatic payments not only guarantee timely bill payments, but also cast a positive glow on your credit score. Late payments can cast shadows on your credit history, leading to increased interest rate and potential hurdles in securing future loans. By automating payments, you not only save time, but also craft a consistent and reliable financial track record. And with that, we conclude today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, your source for the latest in business and finance, empowering you to make informed decisions. Stay tuned for more enlightening updates. Until next exploration, take care and flourish.
Thanks, Denise. In regional news, Barbados continues to push for adaptation financing as world leaders meet in Dubai for a major climate change conference. Prime Minister Mia Mottley stressed the importance of financing during a COP28 presidency press conference.
We're in danger of allowing the narrative on loss and damage to crowd out the importance that is absolutely still necessary for adaptation. At the end of the day, loss and damage is just that. It's after the event. What we want is to avert damage and avert losses before the event. At 30 billion, with a view to being able to scale that up to 250 billion. The truth is that private sector funding is going to be critical, but we all know that there are a number of things that need to be done to make that fair and level. Unless we lower and level the cost of debt to the global south, we're going to continue with countries not being able to benefit in real terms, which means deconstructing the foreign exchange risk and trying to put a proper price on it rather than overcharging it. Deconstructing the unconscious bias, and we all know it still exists. So let us not bury our heads in the sand about that. We need, therefore, to bring the bank regulators to the table who continue to perhaps put rules that they think are benign but have deleterious impact because of the lack of structures and institutions in the global south.
Vice President Dr. Abrata Jagdeo has consistently advocated for countries which save their forests to be paid for doing so. Says Guyana's model has proven to be successful at a time when the developed world has failed to meet their end of the bargain in providing financing. The newsroom's Neil Marks has been speaking with Dr. Jagdeo in Dubai at the United Nations Climate Summit, and he addressed the question of why Guyana could not sit and wait on the developed world to fulfill their promises to help forest-rich countries.
One of your frustrations has been there hasn't been enough public funding for forests, for adaptation, and other things. So yes. Guyana has decided to go another route.
Yes, and We recognized that a long time ago, 15 years ago, that there was this feeling that you will save forest through philanthropy and some small amounts of public money. And given the experience in other areas, the lack of public funding for that have already been pledged, but the developed world failed to deliver, we decided to embark on a course of action in our forestry sector that would see us eventually using a market-based mechanism to raise the funds at scale to outcompete alternate use for the forest. And that is why we have one of the most successful models in the world. Today we have the only national scale certification, jurisdictional scale certification of forests in the world. We have sold 30% of our forest carbon for a minimum of 750 million, because if it's traded further, we share the upside. If we get the same pricing, and over the next 10 years, we can raise upwards of $2.5 billion US. I pointed out, although our forest is so large, bigger than England, it's just 1% of global forests. And the 99% of the remaining tropical forests in the next 10 years will not see $2.5 billion pledged for conservation efforts in all of those countries. So we will raise more money through a market-based mechanism than they will get through public money from all the sources for all of these forests. And so that tells you a lot about the success of our model. And that is why we believe that those countries the incentives should be created, and those countries should also, some of them, explore the market to raise money to outcompete alternate use for the forest. We believe that's the only way in the long run you can preserve forests. We pointed out
Trinidad and Tobago's Trade Minister Paula Gopi-Scoon is confident that the Twin Island and Chile can finalize trade negotiations soon. More in this report.
Fifth round of negotiations between both countries, the minister noted that TNT and Chile have shared diplomatic ties since 1964, which was strengthened in 2005, with Chile establishing an embassy in Port of Spain. She said the partial trade scope agreement, which is in the fifth and final round, will continue to expand bilateral relations and enhance trade.
Access inputs and raw materials at more competitive prices due to preferential access in both markets. It is expected that exporters would be able to grow their businesses, earn invaluable foreign exchange, increase in employment, and of course, increasing their contributions to their respective economies.
And chief negotiator at Chile's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sebastian Gomez, said they are optimistic of concluding negotiations this week, noting that there has been a continued upward trend of trade between both countries.
Dropped during the pandemic, as in many cases, to 184 million, dropped from 264 million in 2019, but then it increased again to 313 million in 2021, and then increased again in 2022 to 679 million US dollars. And according to my latest information that we have by September 2023, we already at that month reached more than 500 million US dollars this year.
TNT's delegation will be led by Colin Connolly, resuming his role as chief negotiator, and supported by Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Randall Karim, along with technical experts from various ministries and government agencies.
In sports, match day 2 in Tier 1 of the Trinidad and Tobago Premier League football was completed on Sunday, and TTT Sport was at the Larry Gomes Stadium for the Prison Service FC versus Eagles FC.
Prisons FC came into their second match of the TTPFL season high in confidence after an impressive first-round win over Central FC. Their opponents on match day 2 were Eagles FC, formerly Canupia, who pulled off a 1-1 draw with a heavily fancied Police FC outfit last week. Both teams got in some looks at goal early, but it was Eagles with the first real chance to take the lead. They did not. Instead, it will be Prisons taking that lead in the 28th minute. Ricardo John showing his goal-scoring prowess with the finish. Another ball over the top had Eagles in problems as Dwight Jordan does all the work but is stopped by the upright. 1-0 in favour of Prisons, the score at half-time. In the second half, Eagles would suffer a further setback as John released Travis Byron with a clever flick and he was bundled over on the way to goal. Penalty. John stepped up to make it 2-0 to the servicemen in the 60th. Eagles battled to get back into it, but were repelled as Prisons went on lockdown. They finally broke through 5 minutes into added time. Ricardo Williams slapping home to make it 2-1. That will be all the scoring in this one as Prisons register the second win of their campaign. In the other match on Sunday, the servicemen derby between the Defence Force and Police ended in a 2-2 draw.
More. Across, into the back of the net. Brent Sam.
Kwesi Allen and Elijah Belgrave of Police bookending a double from Brent Sam of Defence Force.
Ball across. That's it. Belgrave.
Wayne Cunningham, TTT Sport.
Now, Tobago hosted its first ever Tier 1 match in the Trinidad and Tobago Professional Football League when 1976 Phoenix FC hosted AC Port of Spain at the Dwight York Stadium. Ken Fuentes brings us more.
The new boys out of the sister Isle FC Phoenix came up against the last season's runners-up, AC Port of Spain. And the newcomers got a dream start in the 14th minute when Michael Jem Gordon worked a neat 1-2 pass to open up the AC Port of Spain defense and give his team the lead. But 5 minutes later, AC Port of Spain will level as Kadeem Corbin timed his run to perfection to get his team back in the game. 1-1 at the break. Corbin's smart movement in the box was causing problems with the Phoenix defense, as this time he went back post to give his team a 2-1 lead in the 51st minute. AC Port of Spain extended their lead in the 55th as Corbin provided the assist to Cedale McLean to make it 3-1 in favor of the men from the capital. And in extra time, Corbin used his pace to good effect to score his team fourth and complete a well-deserved hat-trick. AC Port of Spain coming away with the 4-1 victory over FC Phoenix. Kent Fuentes, TTT Sports.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thank you so much for watching.